Greetings and welcome dear students. Students, in this video we are going to see the poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening written by Robert Frost, an American poet. He is highly regarded for his realistic depictions of nature. Students, do you like forest? How many of you have seen forest? Have you enjoyed the beauty of forest? Hope you have all enjoyed the beauty of forest. Like us, the poet also enjoyed the beauty of the snow-covered forest. One day, while he was traveling in his horse, he entered a forest. He stopped there to watch the beauty of the snow-covered forest, and in doing so, he reflected both on nature and society. Now, let's see what he says in the poem. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though he will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Here in this first stanza, the poet describes that after a long travel, the poet entered a forest. It was winter season. The forest was so beautiful, covered by snow. He was fascinated by its beauty and stopped his horse near the woods. What do you mean by woods? It means forest. He wondered to whom the woods belonged. Then he realized that the owner of the woods lived in a village. He was very happy that the owner would not be able to see him. So he stopped his horse there to watch the beauty of the snow-covered woods. Imagine how beautiful the woods are when it is covered by snow. So beautiful, isn't it? Students, in this stanza, the word he refers to the owner of the woods. The line woods fill up with snow shows that it was winter season. Now let's see the second stanza. My little horse must think it cure to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Here in the second stanza, the poet said that there was no farmhouse near. Usually, they stopped in a farmhouse. So his horse would think it very queer why he stopped near the woods as there was no farmhouse. What do you mean by queer? It means strange. On one side, there were dark woods. On the other side, there was frozen lake. They were standing between the woods and the lake. It was winter season. The poet stopped there and looked at the scenic beauty of the woods. For him, the woods were lovely, dark and deep, but the horse did not and could not see the beauty of the woods. Usually, they stopped in the farmhouse. Since the horse did not see the farmhouse nearby, it wondered why the poet had stopped him there. Why? Just to watch the scenic beauty of the woods. But the horse could not be able to understand. In this stanza, the poet used the rhyming words queer and near. Have you noticed? What do you mean by rhyming words? Rhyming words are two or more words that have the same or similar ending sound. When you pronounce the word queer and near, you can hear the same ending sound R, isn't it? Now let's see the third stanza. He gives his honest bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Here in the first line, we have seen he gives his honest bells a shake. Who does this he refer to? He refers to the horse. Students, here the poet uses the poetic device personification. Personification means comparing living or non-living things with human beings or human qualities. Here the poet compares the horse with he. In this third stanza, we can see that the horse thought that the poet might have stopped there by mistake. Perhaps the poet was forgetful or absent mindedly stopped there. In order to point out his mistake, the horse shook his harness. What do you mean by harness? It means straps and fittings by which a horse is fastened to a cart or carriage. The bells in the harness of the horse jingled. The slow and gentle wind of the forest and the falling snowflakes make a soft sound. The poet was absorbed by the beauty of words and the snowflakes that fell on him. Apart from these, there was no other sound in the forest. Now let's move on to the final stanza. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. In the final stanza, the poet felt the woods were lovely, dark and deep. The peace and quietness of the woods urged him to stay there a little longer, but he could not stop there longer because he had to make a long travel. He had to fulfill his responsibilities before going to bed. These thoughts forced him to leave the place and go on with his journey. Students, the inner meaning of this poem is in our journey of life, we have many responsibilities, but on the way, we get diverted by worldly pleasures and attractions. We should not indulge ourselves in the worldly pleasures. We have to continue our journey of life and fulfill our tasks before we close our eyes in death. The poet laid stress on the fact that he had to fulfill his responsibilities before his death. So he had repeated the last line. In these last two lines, the poet uses certain poetic device called repetition. Students, in this last stanza, the word I refers to the poet.